Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having fun.
This is a continuation of the piece from last week.
Mixed Media says he almost always has to work Saturday nights.
Oh, but
He can never make it live.
But
He always catches it the next day.
he's here now.
He is.
Cool. Mixed Media being
Mix, M-I-C-K-S.
I don't know. I said he, but I don't. I should say they because I don't know if it's a he or she or they.
That's true. Well, good to see you. I'm glad you're on the live part.
Yeah. We should mix it up sometimes, but I don't know what's better. Is it better to do it the same time every week, or is it better to mix it up sometimes for people who are different, who are at different schedules?
It would be nice for the European people that we
to do it at different times.
Yes, because there are some people like Eastern Europe and the Middle East and everywhere. It's a pun, and yes, I'm a boy. Been following for years.
Oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, I didn't. I was just trying to,
be polite.
Be polite and make sure I was,
being polite.
Being polite. That's the way of saying it.
I'm tired now.
You're tired now?
Yes.
Well, you just mowed the yard.
It's true. It was hot. I'm not going to say that. But it was very funny.
And school's about to start again for the kids.
School's about to start again.
So. I should find out how much Hannaberry would want for us to rent their space out to do like a seminar kind of a thing.
And maybe talking to Sarah.
Yeah.
How do you go about, Lego Leviathan asks, how do you go about augmenting anatomy so you can get the form of the monsters and such?
I think the thing that makes the most sense to me is that it's all based on, obviously, like this guy is based on stylized human structure. The wings are based on stylized, more bat wing structures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It helps a lot to study the anatomy drawings of different things, because if you notice, a lot of creatures, it's kind of a common thing in a way, but a lot of creatures tend to look like creatures that have had their skin removed. They look more muscular or more striated, but they're all usually they're based on some form of realistic anatomy that somebody's stylized or changed quite a bit,
Very cool.
So, and that's actually what I do quite a bit. I'll incorporate not just stylized anatomy, but also other organic shapes and stuff as well. Like having the tree roots on my desk. Sometimes like the lichen on those branches over there. Just all of that, informs it. And I really like to look at like the mummified animals and because that is interesting to me, because it shows the structure underneath the skin, but isn't just skeletal. It actually has a covering on top of it as well.
Yes.
Which to me is more interesting. It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes and sometimes when I do realistic stuff, obviously, I'll try to photograph it. Or
Gotcha.
A lot of the imperfections that I did were, I have one of those wireless displays that would let me photograph myself and see what I look like on the screen and set up the shot.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You're getting thumbs up, so.
Oh, thanks.
People are thumbs upping it. What is your pencil brand? That's a lead holder?
This is a Caran d'Ache lead clutch. This one holds the 2mm leads, and the 2mm lead that I'm using is an 8B from Kohinoor, I believe, which you can get on Amazon. And I bought a lot of them.
Yes.
But I go through them like for a drawing for a drawing like this, I'll go through an entire lead.
I believe you.
So, especially if I get more, if I do anything with the background, you can tell how humid the world is where we
Now
live,
it
but
is, look.
from the warping of the paper.
You can see it better on the
Yeah.
other.
I mean, that'll if you matter frame it or whatever, that'll flatten out. But
Oops.
it just it's been
So you
very
can see it better on the other camera.
yeah, it's been very humid. I hope that answered the question about
I
the
think so.
anatomy and stuff there. And this one I
This
use.
paper that you're using tonight.
Oh, this is Strathmore 400 series medium surface drawing paper. It's just their kind of standard drawing paper that I use. I have a lot of really good papers that I like too, but sometimes having an expensive paper is an obstacle in and of itself.
It's a
Just
little daunting.
because you don't want to waste money, right, and
Right.
throw it away. So sometimes it's like and the Strathmore paper, people have been drawing on this for decades, and it's good paper, and it lasts. If you take care of it, it's got good tooth, and it's not super expensive. It's actually a fairly inexpensive paper,
Yes.
and it's easy to come by. One of the reasons I picked it was because I also wanted to be working on something that anybody else who watches this
Can
they
do
could
it.
get a hold
It's
of.
a Strathmore 400 series medium weight drawing paper.
Right.
Any
So-
advice on getting the values correct?
If you're obviously if you're going for something realistic, see if you can set up a lighting situation to study the value. If you're doing something like this is about value to me. It feels more like sculpting than anything else. And so a value change, you probably may have heard this before, but a value change is a shape change when you're talking about drawing in value. So when I draw, I get to a point where I'll try to map out where I want some of the dark areas to be, and then I'll try to sculpt the figure with the pencil in my mind, even though I'm laying down a two-dimensional value, I'm thinking of what that does three-dimensionally.
Gotcha.
And typically I have a sort of a vague, especially for stuff that I do on the spot of the moment, just for sketching, I'll do like a vague top-down light source, just because it's really easy to fake a top-down light source because you're doing it from one angle,
Right.
and
You've also done it a lot, so.
I've done it a lot, which is what makes it easier to fake. But
Right.
the more different angles, and I actually for drawing also like single light sources most of the time. Not that I don't like the core shadows that multiple light sources can make, but for like really to me striking black and white work, like in film noir and things like that,
Mhm.
usually has that like single light source that just really molds the figure.
Right,
The
right.
shadows are really. But often I'll set up a figure, like I'll sketch something. Here, I'll do it real quick. I'll show you what
Well,
I'm doing.
someone else is asking about the blending methods for shadows and highlights. Maybe you could do that on the other left, the right wing there.
Yeah, I'll show you that in a second. This is, oops, sorry, bumped your hand. But so sometimes I'll make say I'm gonna do this like in a simple way, like a simple like shapes, right? Like if this were a head shape and a torso shape, right? And I'll think top down. So I'll think I know this is a sphere, right? So it's gonna have a sphere shadow, but it's gonna cast a shadow that's gonna be elongated, right? Like that. And sometimes I'll go through and quickly, just on a small like piece of paper, I'll do even a thumbnail of that, and I know that if this is a rounded torso, like a rounded belly, it's going to have that same kind of shadow, and then this shape is going to produce a shadow on this shape. It's almost like a cascade. You just have to find your light source and then let everything define itself from that point on down. And like if this were a leg shape and it were going back into the distance, it would be all in shadow, whereas this one would only start to become shadow. It would have
If you're stepping forward.
is if you're stepping forward, you get a shadow on the top part of the thigh, and then
underneath.
after where the knee starts to bend, you would
Right.
start to see it change too, like that. And as far as a stylized figure goes, you can start to see where, if you can get closer to that, you can start to see where there's like a shape, that you can work
Mhm.
from. Now, me personally, I can take a really sketchy stylized figure, and I can see these lines as real. And what I mean by that is, like, anything that looks like a stray line to me is something that I'll actually use as a defining line, and then just apply shadow and light to it to make it look like it wasn't an accidental line but a real line. So a lot of times I'll do really sketchy stuff, right? but then I go back and I'll go, okay, well if this weren't just a sketch, if this were just an impression of what was really there, what would the light be doing to this shape, you know? And so I've done that a lot, and that's kind of an abstract thing to do, in a way.
Where you get your more abstract bodies. Then.
Yeah, but that's where I get a lot of those weird shapes that I don't really think my way through. I just sort of find.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just come from like layering that kind of thing over and over again. So
Well, Insanity Draw is asking if you ever use gouache for highlights, or do you just erase for your highlights?
I usually, if I'm doing a drawing, I won't use gouache for the white because it stands out so much.
It's too much. Too
It's
white.
different than the white that the gray is built on,
Right.
and it looks kind of out of place for me. They're probably somebody that can do it and make it work. But what I will do is you know, I erase. I will control my values quite a bit. Like for instance, if I really wanted this piece to look set in a space instead of just being an isolated figure, and I laid in gray in the background, I would make sure that my highlights in the piece were that, like, there would be really no white on the board. Even the highlight itself, only the highest highlight might come close to white, and unless it's a specular, you know what I mean by specular, it's that really shiny highlight on an eyeball.
Gotcha.
And if it's not a specular highlight, even that won't be white.
Gotcha.
But you know, very often you have to do relative values, right? So your highlights are relative as well. And if you can control that, if you control the values, then you'll always have more light in an image, even if you don't have as much white on the board, because the light that you're using is controlled.
Right. Figure out where the
Yeah.
brightest white is. Even if
it's
not white.
in photography, it's, you know, it's called, you know, they call it controlling your black point and your white point.
Right.
You know, you want to know where your darkest area is and your lightest area,
Yeah.
and you build on that.
Yeah.
So
Someone's asking if you'd ever consider working for Magic Gathering.
I have done work for Magic the Gathering.
You've
Yeah,
done 50-some cards.
I was in the second set of cards, the
Oh, wait.
second deck that was ever made.
Yes. Under 3 different names, I believe. So
Worked- yeah, my style has changed quite a
a
bit
lot.
over the
It
years.
doesn't look like this.
If you ever had the Ice Age card set, I had the original Blinking Spirit was one of the cards that I did, and then back then the big controversy was that Blinking Spirit wasn't supposed to fly, but nobody told me that when I started doing it, and so I made it a flying creature, and then I redid it and made it more of a kind of a walking creature. But I've done a lot of Magic cards over the years. I did 20-something cards, I think, or 14 or 15 cards in that first set. Duncan just recently
11 or 14.
I don't know. It was you know.
But when you did the Rage cards, you did 20-something.
I did
Or Jihad.
I did work back when they called Rage. It was originally
Yeah.
you know, and the vampire and the werewolf stuff was all called Jihad, and they were like, maybe we shouldn't call it that, and so they changed it to Rage.
Was
But
that a different thing? I think it was a different game.
no, it was basically the same game. They rebranded it.
Oh. Huh.
But- Well, because you know,
Right, it
that's
was just a huh.
yeah.
That's- Tips on inking. I don't know that you would be the person to ask about tips
Yeah.
on inking.
You know, I used to, when I first started, I worked in pen and ink a lot, but you know, I mostly work in graphite. But you know, I love pen and ink. I love line work. You want to see some beautiful line work? You know, Aaron Horkey has some beautiful line work.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are doing it, but it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse right now because I haven't done it in a long time.
Right. Someone asked if you ever drew comics.
Comics? No. I've never done any really sequential
Sequential
artwork.
work, yeah.
That's always been something I looked at with like, oh, that looks like it would be really difficult to do. You know? Oh, no, it's very true though. I mean, it's
You're
like,
terrible.
well, you know, it's,
No, it is
I-
hard. It's
I-
a different kind of drawing,
It
man.
is-
It is hard.
yeah, I mean, there's things I want to do I've wanted to do in terms of comics, you know, or maybe a graphic novel. And it's just that, you know, that's so much stamina. I mean, I really respect the people who pencil comic books, because that's, I mean, just to be able to carry over, to draw that and do make the continuity work and to do the sequential work, that's a whole entire another, you know, that's a whole entire another set of skills.
10,000
It's
hours
another
on that.
10,000 hours, yeah. But
It is not easy.
no. And I do have friends, you know, before that, you know, one of my good friends in college was Joe Phillips, and when I met him, I think he was doing Speed Racer and Lobo. and I got to see somebody who would do sequential work, and it's just an entirely different mindset sometimes I think than what I do. It's
Hawks Art asks, out of all the concept creatures you've done for movies, which one is your favorite?
uh,
Oh, that's hard.
well, it's
Always
hard.
changes too.
Yeah, but I would have to say right now, and this has nothing to do. I mean, people have their different opinions about the movie, but the ones that I've done that were the most like what I designed were the ones in Hellboy, the latest Hellboy movie. They were very very close to what I did in terms of the design, and I mean that was really fun, and it makes them kind of one of my favorites right now.
Yeah.
And
Here, hold on.
I didn't what?
I don't think you hit
Yeah, I did. It's recording.
yeah,
That's
but
why it's
the
weird.
audio is on.
Huh? Well, yeah, it is. It's just you can't see it because it's scrolled down.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, the audio it's just down lower because
Right,
I made it
let's
bigger. So, but whether you like the movie or not, because I know a lot of people have very passionate opinions about it. I liked, drawing the demon creatures that came out at the end of the film, the ones that came out from under the underworld.
Ripping people
yeah.
apart.
Which is, it's funny that I got to do demons in that, because as grotesque as a lot of the things are that I draw, I think of more as guardian figures. But it was fun. It was really fun to see something that you had drawn, that you've drawn, get turned into a maquette and then turned into a moving model and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes. That was their Caran d'Ache fixed pencil.
This Caran d'Ache fixed pencil, 77,
With a different lead in it.
and it used 2mm leads.
Any skills beginners should learn.
Well, and, I mean, that's funny. My smart ass answer to that is all of them, because you're a beginner,
Thanks,
But
Alan.
the absolute best thing, the thing that has helped me the most over the years, was getting over my reservations about drawing human figures,
Right.
and
You go, "I can't do
especially
hands."
hands and feet.
Yes.
If you start and attack those with passion, you can get away with so much in a piece if you can draw good hands and feet. You can almost get away without doing the piece if you can draw good hands and feet. I actually have pieces of art that are basically blank places with hands in them.
They're not blank. But
Well,
I do know what
mostly,
you-
but I mean, they're not totally just black.
There's
but
stuff there.
There's stuff there, but
Usually what it is you paint a whole bunch of stuff and then you
then I paint it out.
paint it all out and put the hands and
Put
feet
the hands
in.
and
I'm
feet.
like,
But being able to especially if you're doing illustration or any kind of work like this that has a fantasy or a fantastic narrative,
right.
being able to have something in it that looks representational will anchor the abstract qualities of like something like this. If I wanted to anchor it and make it even more accessible to people, I would incorporate something that is more like if I gave him like human hands somewhere,
Right.
like, which I do that quite a bit, and I like that's kind of a theme in some of the work that I do, where I'll have an abstract figure but they'll actually have human hands in the
Right.
piece.
Or if they have, right.
Or if the cloth looks believably real on top of the figure,
Right, right.
which is this has been faked, right? But if I really wanted to make this like anchor it in reality, I could take this form
Right.
and I could reproduce the basic shape and then throw a cloth on it and take a photograph and have a
Go back
maquette
and
then go back and
some
add
in,
it. Yeah,
add and subtract what you need and everything like that.
right. It helps to study shadows and edges too,
Mm-hmm.
the way things fit together. And I do a lot of found and like in here you can see a lot of found and lost edges in this. They don't always make sense. They're there aesthetically sometimes, just because I want them to lose. I want to find or lose the edge based on what I, sometimes I just like softening the edges of things, and then the parts of it that are hard edged pop out. If I soften all the edges around this head shape, this spherish thing, then this will even stand out.
head?
Yeah.
It's got cranial.
It's got cranial sutures.
Yeah,
So,
so it is. There's like an eye socket right there.
yeah, right there.
Come
And
on,
then-
it is. Yes.
So
Someone asked if 25 was too old for an artist.
never. There's no
Hopefully
age.
not.
No, I'm 53, so the thing is that you can start whenever you start and go as hard or as soft as you want to go. There are people who never find out that they're even interested in doing art until later in life.
Right.
And so don't put any limitation on yourself like that, and don't concern yourself with whether or not you fit the description of what people call talent, because that's really, you do it and learn how to do it. You can learn physically, academically how to draw anything, and then you do that, and you'll find the place where you're meant to show it, or you'll discover it along the way. But no, don't. Your age is no limitation. You can start at 75. It doesn't matter, when you start.
You got it.
It's you work with what you work with.
Right. Do you have any recommendations on materials available to study from, online or even a book?
I early on when I was young, like really young, I would copy comic books all the time.
Right.
Just kind of because I didn't know, I didn't really have a lot of formal education. I did a couple years of college, and then mostly what I did was self-directed. Like I sought out different seminars and classes and videos and stuff. There's some academic books like the Charles Bark drawing guide, drawing class or course. It's Charles Barks, who is like a contemporary of Jerome, and that's a good one for learning academic drawing process.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that gets you motivated to draw, in terms of, like I watched a lot of the videos on Gnomon online, GNOMON Gnomon
Right.
workshop. They have some really good, like, just structure and foundational drawing videos and things.
Someone asks, is that stippling or just the texture of the
This is
paper?
the texture of the paper, but it looks like stipple because it's such a contrasty texture. And I will go in with a sharp pencil and like sort of augment it and make it even look more like stipple, because it gives it that continuity.
Not all over, just
not
in
all over,
certain
just in
parts.
certain areas. Yeah, it gives it that grainy look that's really nice in old black and white photography.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of kind of creating continuity in an image, is to create that texture all over it. But I certainly, I'll do like a flat edge on my pencil sometimes, just so I can go in and like softly from the side hit the tooth,
Mm-hmm.
and it just ends up looking like stencil. I mean, like
Yes.
stipple. And then I can go back, and where it's rough, I can just touch it a few times, and it looks completely purposeful. Whereas
Yes, and it's not vellum. This is Strathmore 400 series medium weight drawing paper. It's not an expensive paper.
No.
It's just it's an archival drawing paper.
right.
Your subject randomly perplexed says or asks, your subject matter seems to lean toward the darker side. Would you consider some fluffier subject matter?
It's I like pretty much everything out there. That it just depends on what hits me on what day. Like there's a couple of pieces I have on my Instagram that are like, there's one called the Sundog, which is like this kind of I don't know if you call it Baroque designed, like it almost looks like a greyhound.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I love all kinds of imagery in terms of and especially if you guys we've already talked about like I have a huge collection of imagery on like Pinterest that I'm constantly adding to.
Yes,
And
'cause someone else asked where you get your inspiration from, and it's
I do go
books,
on
movies, Pinterest,
everything. I can't really, if I'm on Pinterest for like 10 minutes, I'm ready to work, because there's so much that I've collected that inspires me. That it's
right? Including the recipe for tahini.
oh yeah. Well, actually, I have a Pinterest page that are recipes even I can make.
Even you, that's right.
So I started
Recipes
doing
even
it.
Alan can make.
Yeah. So,
But
but
is it a public one?
no, actually, most of my boards are not public except for, let's see, I think Where My Eyes Linger is
That's public.
that's a public one. If you go onto Pinterest and look for Where My Eyes Linger, here it is. This is one of my public boards, and it has there's a lot of
You
sculpture.
are Alan Williams, and then it's Where My Eyes Linger.
Yeah. So
Yes. Do you ever feel like there is a new generation just copying the work of Geiger?
I feel like that there's
Generation of
a
artists.
generation of people that are deaf, that have that as a lineage, and it's kind of part of their visual language now. I don't know that I would call it copying the work of Geiger, but he was such a powerful he had such a powerful aesthetic that it became a foundational aesthetic in like a lot of concept stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like it's really difficult to find like cool creatures that don't have some element of Geiger in them.
Right.
You know, I
Biomechanical.
right,
Kinda.
and I think before Geiger, I'd never even heard the term biomechanical. I think he's sort of a foundational aesthetic, if you, for lack of a better word. I don't think people are in. I mean, people are definitely inspired by him, and you can definitely
And when
see.
an artist is younger, sometimes they do end up.
Yeah,
I mean, you end up.
but what I think though is that you're going to find that with each age and then the generation previous will see where their influences come from,
Right.
and it has to go through each generation though and be reborn, so
Gotcha.
that it can change into something else down the line, right?
Yes.
That
Right.
I mean that's my opinion, but
Okay, I'm going to say our website address is alanwilliamsstudio.com, and I just put up some more originals, updated some prints on there. This will be up under our stories here on Instagram, then it will go up to the Patreon, which I'm 1 week behind. I got to do last week's. Our Patreon is patreon.com/Alan Williams, and then it will go up on our YouTube channel, which is Alan Williams Studio. And it goes up,
so we have all those places.
yes. Yeah.
So.
Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm definitely have Geiger influences in my background as well as Beksinski, and when I get into the realism, I love looking at the academically beautiful work of like Jerome and the
Well,
Waterhouse to me is one of the most perfect painters of that period. You know what I mean in terms of those guys. And me and my friend Travis, we drove when we were living in Ohio. We drove 10 hours to spend 2 hours at the Waterhouse exhibit in Montreal, and then 10 hours back. So it was definitely worth every moment there.
Memorp says, I feel like my work incidentally resembles Geiger a little, even if it is more influenced by other artists, but it's probably inescapable.
Well, yeah, your influences, your lineage is gonna show up in your work. What you like to look at is what you like also probably to do.
Right.
And so, it's got to go through a phase of transformation. As long as you're not like directly copying things that Geiger or anybody did, and you're trying to make it, you can use an aesthetic language and try to say something in that language that isn't
Right.
what they already said. So.
Yeah, and this board is leaning on a board that's just a little bit over the thing at the top.
I basically have framed my drawing desk so that
and
my
at the
drawing.
bottom. So it is over top of the board.
Yeah, definitely. That was well. And these things are only here to make sure that this is in the right place for my camera.
Right.
It's up there.
Oh. Someone already asked this. Someone else has asked this. Any advice on promoting yourself as an artist? Put your best foot forward.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just have to make sure that whatever it is that you want to do, you have examples of what you like to do, somewhere where people can see them. Whether it's an online portfolio or you're involved in a forum somewhere that you can direct people to. The things that we've done in terms of promotion have always been like what we're doing now.
Right.
We have Instagram and Facebook and
But before that,
before that, all you could really do were send out portfolios and make
and go to shows
and postcards and go to shows. Yeah,
and
which we did a lot of.
And we did, yeah. We went to Gen Con for 20-some years, and San Diego Comic Con for 20-some years.
Yeah.
And now we're going to Monsterpalooza.
We'll be at Lightbox Expo coming up.
Be at Dragon Con.
And at Dragon Con.
Back at Dragon Con in the dealer's room.
Yep.
So,
specifically, you have to also figure out what it is that you do, and look at what other people are doing to promote themselves as well. Like, if you want to do children's book illustrations, then the way you promote yourself in that regard is submitting work to the people who pay for that sort of thing.
That, and I have to say that in one way it's easier now because people can find you easier on the internet, but it's also harder because a lot of people are on there. But it also, so we've been doing this and been together for 30 years. So you're not going to get on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever and all of a sudden have 50,000 people.
Right.
It's just going to take time, and it's like a marathon, and you just have to Slow and
Yeah.
steady.
Yeah, and you know, like they used to have a phrase, and probably a lot of you've heard this before, but it takes something like 10 to 20 years of hard work to become an overnight
An
success.
overnight success, yes.
And that's as far as I can tell. You know, it's true. Not that I'm an overnight success in any way. I always like to say that I was never a person cursed by early success.
Early success. Xerxes asked, "What are your thoughts on the artist Brahm, and if you know him?"
I do know him, and I love his work, and I've always loved his work. And he's another guy that sort of has such a strong and he still does has such a strong aesthetic that he sort of created a cottage industry of that look that has evolved over the years with other artists as well.
Right, right.
But yeah, Brahm is a really nice guy, and he does some. I have some of his work in the house, some prints and things that I've gotten from him at shows, and I've known him for a long time in passing and at shows, and you know we've been on some panels together and stuff. And he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his wife does some beautiful work too. If you've never seen Lori
Lori
Lee's work,
Lee's?
yeah.
Oh, like two of them. Wow. Has anything ever made you not want to make art for a long time, and how do you overcome self-doubt?
You know what? The things that typically would stand to make me not want to create would be in a really bad position of doing work I didn't like to do for someone else. And what has happened to me when I've been in that position, because I have been in it before, is that I start doing a whole lot more work for myself. And that helps me out, you know, or I end up being honest and saying, this is not the job that I need to be doing right now. And I stop that job and go back to doing the work that I like to do.
Right, yeah.
I think that, you know, I don't know about the self-doubt thing. It's hard for me to answer that because in my mind, I go through periods of doubt in every piece that I do, but it's a quiet statement in my mind. Like, is this really something I should be doing right now? Or is this piece is it going to work? And I just kind of let myself like hear that question happen in me. And then I go, we won't know until the end if this is going to be what I want it to be. But if
Right.
it's not, I'll take what I learned in this and move it into the next one.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that helped me with all of that is I think everything that I do is in progress until it's done. I know that sounds
Yes.
really strange and simplistic. Every painting is an underpainting until I'm done with it. Every drawing is an underdrawing until I'm done with it. That way I always have in my mind that I can stop at any point and start it again with what I know already from what I learned from it and progress it even further. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It never, I don't typically will sit here and what I have found is that if I'm working on something and it's taking way longer than normal, it's because something is wrong with it and I need to stop and start it again.
And it's taken a long time to figure that out.
Right. I mean, I've gone through different, like, you know, the first, I don't know how many years I started off as an artist. I asked myself, I don't even know what an artist is. What does that mean? You know, it's such an abstract thing that nobody can really answer for you. You know, you have to get to that point where you go, you know, you define it for yourself and then you live up to your own definition, right?
Right.
So,
All right.
anyway.
Are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
What is the worst part of being a successful artist, and how do you deal with it?
The worst part is sometimes feeling like you can't just jump into somebody's class and do something fun, like it's sometimes hard to overcome that initial, I'm successful. Would it damage my image if I show people how much of a student I actually am all the time? And I actually am a student constantly. I never.
All the time.
So my philosophy is not that you have to, you do 10,000 hours of practice, but that you never stop practicing. It is
Right.
part of every piece you do from now until the day you die, right? And it is, so being a student should be, it should be just in my life, being a student is who I am in my life. And I'm a student of the work that I do to figure out more about who I am and what I want. And I'm a student of other people's work to more understand what they're trying to communicate. And all those things kind of combine into the way I approach everything. That sound accurate?
That sounds very accurate.
Right.
You are right. How many hours have you spent on this piece of time?
Well, I spent the time that we were in
Live
the
feed
live feed
last
last time, and I'm going to say probably 3 hours in addition to that.
Because
I was working on the film thing
Yeah.
after that. But I've
Yeah.
spent about 3 hours in addition to the time we spent on live feed last time.
Yeah.
So, and I do actually tend to work faster during the live feed, just because, and that's a change too, because when people are watching, I tend to make different decisions.
No, you think you've gotten better with
I've
it.
gotten better at just turning off my brain though, and just
Yes.
letting the thing happen that normally happens, which is, it's almost like that. I don't know if you guys ever saw Lady Hawk, but when he said he fell down a hole and followed his nose, and that's how he got out of being incarcerated. That's kind of what I feel like I do with art. I fall down a hole and follow my nose and see where it leads. You know. I mean, there are definitely times when I pick something to do that I have like a photograph or a cover or something that I need to work from.
Right, right.
But very often when I'm doing work for myself, I feel like
You're following your nose.
I feel like I'm listening to what the drawing or the piece is saying to me rather than dictating.
Which is different because when we were doing certain kinds of shows, it's definitely easier if you just stick with one subject matter or one.
Well, in terms of business, people tend to
Right.
want you to do. They want to see you do this kind of same kind of thing over and over again,
You don't do that.
which I don't do. No, there's it's a weird razor's edge that you have to walk, like in publishing, right? They want you to be like as a cover person, they want you to be like at the top of your game and do the kind of work that is you, but they don't want you to really like deviate and go like become super experimental. And you can understand why. I mean, it would be weird if they had wanted you to do like the painting of a cowboy and they got an abstract or something, right?
Right.
But it is one of those things that I find it's counterintuitive to doing that kind of work for me, because I tend to like, there are times when I'll want to go like at a right angle in the middle of a piece, and for me, I'll do it, but if I'm working for somebody else, I don't let myself get away with that very often unless it's something I'm sure I can figure out.
Right.
I don't really like to make, to spend other people's money when they've asked me to do something. I don't want to spend their money
On your
educating
experiments.
myself on my experiments.
Right.
Yeah, I want to do what they need me to do.
Right.
So, but then again, I've
So-
programmed my business so that I only have a certain part of my year where I'm working for other people, and the rest of my year I'm doing my own work. Like right now, I'm starting like tomorrow, basically working for
Your-
a solo
Okay.
show,
Yeah.
a solo show that's coming in November
to Santa Monica.
at Santa Monica at Copro.
Big
Yeah.
Copro Gallery.
So I've been like really busy this year.
We
It's
have
been
several. We have several pieces done.
yeah, I have pieces done already, but I've been really busy this year. I've had more contract work this year than than I can ever
Yeah,
remember
for a-
having. Yeah.
For a long time, and you
Yeah.
had for a long time.
Yep.
Someone asked. It helps if I put my glasses on. Sorry, guys. What helps you get through some of the larger pieces of art? I tend to get overwhelmed and take shortcuts, which shows up in lack of details. I would say do smaller pieces.
Well, I do. I mean, this paper is 12 by 18, right? And I will do a lot of drawings at 12 by 18 until I get to a point where I do something that's this size that I look at it and go, I want to do that bigger.
Yeah, where you have to do it bigger.
Right, and then I've already got the one that's this size that will inform the larger one, so it keeps me from going
Yes.
too far astray. Plus, it also helps to calm down and settle down and meditate, kind of when you're working, and purposefully slow yourself down so that you can do those slow. There's a slow decision making process for me. Like my fast decision making process helps in like super fast concepting of stuff. My slow decision making process helps when I get in here and start playing and noodling with things. And I
Making
tend
the
to
cranial
right.
things.
I
here.
tend to linger in that part. I like slowing down and being kind of in tune with the work. I definitely have tailored myself to do that.
Right.
Because at one point I had shown somebody a drawing, another professional, and they asked me how long it took. And I said, 2 weeks. And they said, well, can you do this faster? And I looked at them and was like, nope, I can't. I don't think I can. It's so
not going to happen.
I actually came home and in response to them asking me to do it faster, slowed down because I'm like that passive aggressive anti-authority kind of. So, but what the weird byproduct of that after slowing down was that it got faster.
Yes.
I don't know why, but it just, as I slowed down, I became more in tune with what I was doing.
Right.
I got more confident over the time, and it got faster.
All right, but you have to draw it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. You can keep talking now.
I don't think I can.
Yes, you can. You can talk.
So,
Or I can keep showing your face.
nah, nobody wants that.
I do.
So, I do like having a flat, like a chisel point on a pencil. because you can just like make dark, like shapes and stuff that they read as, after you get to a certain point, every little change you make reads as a form change. It's like if you put a dark spot down on this gradient, or this the way this is rendered, it reads as a bump or a divot, right? And that's basically the way the whole piece goes, and how it builds up like dimensionality, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually, this is a fairly simple piece in terms of dimension, because it's all on a plane, essentially. Even the figure here, even though he's projecting out, I've drawn it kind of on a plane. If I want to take a lot of time, and this does take more time, I can make it more dimensional, where it would look more three-dimensional. Like I could reinforce the illusion, I guess you could say. And I do spin my pad when I work. It's just something that I do. I know there's a lot of people that don't, but
Really?
you do. Yeah, there's actually people that there's art schools where they train people not to do that for some reason, and they have reasons. I'm not saying there's no reason for it,
You
but
just can't remember what it was.
I don't remember what it is, and it just I do it sometimes, and sometimes I don't. When I'm working on an easel, I don't spin things as much, to work on it, but I like being able to find that there's that angle that you draw at, where your lines feel like they're just a natural movement of your arm.
Yes.
And that's the whole reason why people spin anyway, is because you can get that natural angle, because it's doing this is more natural than doing that. Pulling, this is pulling and this is pushing.
That you're pushing and you're covering up your own drawing.
Right.
All right, our website is alanwilliamsstudio.com. And I put some originals and some prints up there, and we'll be doing more of that. Although all the kids go back on Wednesday, so it might be on Thursday. And this will be on our live feed, or on the, what is it? Stories. Sorry. I'm getting tired. This will be on the stories for 24 hours, and then it will go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Alan Williams, and then on to YouTube at Alan Williams Studio, our YouTube channel. So you can either follow us on Patreon or just follow us on YouTube. I usually don't have, a bunch of people will request to be in the live feed. I don't do that. So
what now?
You can email me a picture of the piece. He wanted to show you something. They wanted to show you something.
Yeah, email us and
or IM us here or something like that. And if there's a lot of messages that come through on Instagram, so
and we
if I don't get to it, generally I don't. We don't chat online and everything. But
for some reason, Instagram seems it's more difficult for navigating messages and stuff like that.
It's horrible.
I don't know why, but
it's horrible. It's because
it doesn't give me notifications for one thing.
It's just bad. You can't. Doesn't pop up to the top. It doesn't have any advice for a budding freelance illustrator. Is a personal website crucial? I would have your artwork somewhere.
Definitely have somewhere where you can point people to look at the work you want to do. Whether it's a website or just having like an ArtStation page, or even like ArtStation has.
ArtStation is free, isn't it?
It is. You can do a free setup on ArtStation, and Behance too is free. But there's also pro versions of those, which you don't really have to have that. You just need to have a place where you can point them. Anything you can do to have something to to show them.
Right. You need to have a place. Yes, for the portfolio and everything.
And I'll tell you what the art directors have told me over the years in terms of what they like to see. They don't like to see heavily watermarked images, and they need links with the image so that they can send them to other people in their office if they need to show somebody. There should always be a link for the image.
Oh, and your email address somewhere easily accessible.
Yeah, contact information in general.
Contact information, yes, your email or telephone. That is difficult when I'm looking for something and I'm like, I can't even get a hold of this person.
Right.
Thumbs ups.
Mm.
Thumbs ups. So I hope you guys have been having a good summer. Our summer is now over.
Almost. The kids go back to school next Wednesday.
Yes.
And my daughter's birthday is tomorrow.
Eh.
I should, on one of these live feeds at some point, do a more realistic,
I think you should
like a realistic drawing of something, like an animal or something, just
do that.
just to see the difference in
next week.
the way that it works.
Make a note of that.
So I was,
AJ starts graphic design in August.
That's cool.
Fantastic.
yeah, one of the things, and I was thinking this as you said that,
Okay.
that I started thinking about when I would get to a point with paintings and I would get like nervous about going further. Like if something got to a point that I thought I had done something well, and then I was like, what if I screw it up by the end?
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking, the thing that made me get over that was thinking about art conservation and how there are people 1,000 years after a paint, or 200 years after a painting has been done, that will go back and fix it. And if those guys can go back, not being the original artist, and fix a painting,
Then you should be able.
then
to
I should be able to
fix
fix my own painting.
There you go.
Right there on the spot. You know what I mean?
Very
So,
good.
and the other thing was that I talked to an artist once that was a hyperrealist, and I said, and he did a lot of the same kind of same images over and over again.
Mhm.
It was really beautiful stuff, but he incorporated some of the same like actual content. And I said, does it bore you to draw or paint the same thing over and over again? And he goes, no, I love drawing it the first time. I love drawing it the second time. He goes, basically what he ended up saying was, I love painting. It's not so much what I paint, but that I love doing it,
Yes.
So those two things together, I think, are kind of
Yes.
powerful.
And the question, how do you feel about modern art?
Depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have
That's a
like there's
that's a broad range of.
the kind of modern art that tends to sell for $200 million, I think is something quite a bit different than what I do. I don't really think that the goals are even the same. I think some of those kinds of work are there specifically as an intellectual philosophical statement, and that's what they project, right? And some of them, I believe, are there because people. I actually believe that there's a great deal of modern art that's bought and sold for super ridiculous prices because that's how large businesses. That's the currency between large corporations and businesses. You know what I mean? But there are like Susan Rothenberg. There are some abstraction and stuff that I really love to look at. And obviously some things are so abstract that you don't know what they mean unless you know the artist and ask them, right? Or unless you're willing to just forego that and say this is what it means to me.
Right.
But there's quite a lot of it that I look at and I go, this was important because it had a political agenda or a philosophical agenda,
Right.
or some particular kind of narrative that made it important to someone.
Yes.
There's a lot of it that I don't like. There's a lot of things I look at and I go, yeah, that's novelty, but other than just novelty, what is it?
The type of art that has a blank canvas with all but a small dot or something like
Yeah.
black on black. Well,
Yeah, that kind of thing is it's not really about painting per se as the idea of what is painting, I guess you could say.
Right.
And there are things that I look at like that and I go, I get it, but that's also some of those things became very important, but they were the same things that we talked about in art school. And it just didn't seem like much of a progression from that, other than people were bigger names were saying it and making more money from it.
Right.
Like what is painting is definitely a topic we went through. We just didn't make a living off of it, off of that one question, I like the fact that Klaus Oldenburg made a giant, typewriter eraser, but, the third or fourth giant thing that he did, I was over it.
Right.
I like the fact that it happened once, but, after a while, though, you're just
Kinda
making
like,
giant office supplies,
Yeah. Uh-oh.
What?
Getting what he really thinks about it.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I don't do series work that often is because if I've done something and then I go back and it's going to be a series, I have to find out it myself. Am I just doing this because the first one sold well, or because there's something there I want to explore?
Right.
Right? And so the series doesn't work unless there's something I want to explore that continues throughout.
Right. Right.
All right. Now maybe
Yes.
that's what I can't tell you what he got from that. What Klaus Oldenburg got from it. Maybe
Why?
that is what he got. Maybe he got more than that from
I
it.
don't
You
think
know what
he
I
was
mean?
actually making them though. He had other people make them.
Well,
individually.
usually if you have something like a typewriter eraser that's 4 stories tall, you don't do it by yourself.
Right.
You're right. You know, he
Okay,
probably had teams of
okay.
people working on it.
Yes.
But
And the
but
fact
what
that
I'm saying
one
is-
city would pay him a couple $1
But
million.
what I'm saying is,
might be-
I don't know what he got from it, so therefore I can't define it other than what I got from it.
maybe
Which to
he-
me, after the first one, that's cool, but I was over it.
I don't know, maybe he
you know.
got several $100,000 for each of those.
Just like the guy who does
Sorry.
the silver balloon animals that sell for like $400,000, right? Okay, the first
Ew.
one was kind of cool looking, but then again, it's like at some point, you're
Yeah,
just a
okay.
different kind of a clown making balloon animals. You know,
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, no, I mean,
no. I know.
that's
yes.
just a feeling, though. That doesn't mean I define art for him. That's just what I got from
Right.
it. It's like, okay, but that means nothing. It shouldn't mean anything to him what I think about it.
That is, yes, that's true.
You got to get what
Sorry,
you get.
I'm just all in the. I'm the. Polite.
You've got to get what you get from art. And it is not. It's not my prerogative. I don't need to tell people what they should get from it. You know what I mean? All I can say is it didn't mean as much to me as it obviously meant to him. So
The balloon animals or the eraser?
either
I'm
one.
sorry, I'm joking.
Either one. I mean, like I said, there's novelty and there's innovation and then there's repetition.
Right.
And it's like to me there's a lot of different places that you can that are pitfalls for that sort of thing.
Yes.
I mean, there's a crap ton of people that don't get anything from the kind of work that I do. I'm okay with that. That's fine. That they don't have to. And and I'm not trying to be rude to any of the fine artists that do that. They know. I mean, first off, there are tons of people that like what they do, obviously.
Right.
But I mean, you kind of do have to have an opinion about art to do art.
That's true. You're right. You
And,
are correct.
if you don't have an opinion about any of these things, I don't think maybe you've thought about it long enough. I mean, whether it's a good opinion or a bad opinion, but certainly you never expect anyone to like look at your opinion and weigh it too heavily, because it's just one person.
Right.
Oh,
were you talking about Jeff Koons? I think you are.
Well, no, I don't.
I think he was the balloon guy.
Is that yeah? I mean, and like I said, I don't know what he got from that. If he got some sort of intellectual thrill out of making it that I don't see.
Right.
I never claim to be the smartest person in the world, and maybe smarter people than I do see something really cool there that I don't see. But I'm okay with that too. It's like
I do.
I don't necessarily like to do math, but I certainly respect people who can do math.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, we're getting close to the end. I think in 5 more minutes or something like that.
Did I sound strangely aggressively opinionated? Is that what?
No, I know your opinion, and we discuss it and everything. We usually just don't. Say opinions about that like stuff. Well, people don't ask stuff like that. I don't know. I find it absolutely impossible to break through the gatekeepers at the more prestigious art galleries. Your work is amazing but dark, which is why I'm wondering how you ever broke through.
I guess in our respect to the way that we got into galleries was I was asked to be in certain like group shows at
Yeah.
first.
That's true.
And I sort of, galleries are there to showcase work and make money from it, and so it helped that I had some sales, and then I was doing work that people responded to. If you have a gallery that you think your work fits in, then you submit. You send, you contact them online and ask to be part of a group show. That's a safer bet for a gallery than trying to get a solo show right away.
Oh yeah.
Because a solo show is a risk that they take because they're committing their space to a show for anywhere from a couple weeks to a month or whatever. And if the show doesn't make a lot of money, then that's a big risk for them to take. But having, an individual throw some stuff up in in a group show,
Right.
you probably would have a better bet trying that first, asking to be in a group show at a gallery, because then they can
Yeah, and you really, if you look at the span of things, you haven't been doing group. You
I've
haven't
been
been
doing
doing
gallery
shows
stuff for very long. Yeah.
Maybe the last 5 years or something.
Yeah.
Out of the 30-year span,
Right.
you would do the arts. We would make the prints. We would go to shows. We would sell them. Sell them just to people.
And I enjoy doing gallery shows. I do. We do pretty good doing our own sales online, but there's just another thing. There's the motivational effect of having to do a body of work for a gallery show that has either a consistent theme or at least some sort of a tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
But but you don't necessarily have to have a theme for a gallery show. I think it depends on the gallery though,
Right.
and what they like.
Do you think that there are lines art shouldn't cross, or do you think art should be able to portray anything without limits?
You know what? Again, that's kind of an individual, like on a piece by piece basis. There are people who have depicted some horrendous things, but done it in a way that brought it to light. That I believe, it was great. There are other people who, maybe I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
It is a hard. I mean, there are things that I know that you have been part the way through a piece, and
I've questioned certain content,
content.
Just as an abstract, for instance, like if I had a piece that had handguns in them, what would I be saying about handguns if I had this piece and I had guns in the piece? What would I be saying? What is my meaning behind this? What am I projecting with it? So but do I think that there's areas that people shouldn't address? I think that there are certain,
probably personal things.
probably,
don't
yeah. I think I find it hard to say that there's anything that as an artist, you shouldn't tackle if it's a topic. As long as you're not doing say, damage to people in a way. But even that I find hard to describe. I'm not sure what the question means in that respect, because there are things that people will claim as art that can actually just be something that is
you? I mean, yeah, that's downright illegal.
Illegal or yeah.
Or
So
I mean, I wouldn't want to see any child or person harmed and things like
Right.
that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that's there is not one set answer to that.
and here this is very many of these kinds of questions that really boil down to what is it you're trying to do, and whether or not you have a justification for doing it.
Right.
If not a justification rather than a rationalization for doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that I think that in general people should be able to think their way through any topic and see if they can produce artwork to address any kind of situation or topic. But there are definitely areas that you would look at and go, this might be inappropriate.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if somebody were I don't even know what to describe, but I know that there are things out there
You have 20 seconds, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, the question, I don't know how to answer that other than to say it's a really broad topic and you'd have to go kind of piece by piece to figure it out.
Right. All right. We will see you guys next week. Follow us here and at our website, and more hard questions. Talk to you guys later. Thank you, Alan.
You're very welcome.
Bye.